This is Amplify You, the podcast about you discovering your message and broadcasting it to the world. If you're a coach, author, or speaker, you'll want to tune in. If you're looking for the best return on your time investment to get your message out to the world in a bigger way, we're giving you full access and behind the scenes look of how we're running our podcast, how our clients have found success, and what you can do to launch your podcast today. The world needs your message. I'm Michelle Abraham, the host. Join my family as we unleash your unique genius and find the connections you need to launch your adventure today. Join us and let's get amplified. Hello, Amplify You family. Michelle Abraham, your host. I'm here today with a behind the mic interview, and we're going to do a little bit of a Ask the Expert as well at the same time here today. I have a special guest, Katherine Burrows. Katherine is the big impact ghostwriter. And let me say hi to Katherine first, and then we'll share a little bit more about Katherine with you. How are you doing, Katherine?
I'm great, Michelle. I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, I am finally excited to have you on this show. It's been a long time in the making getting you on here. So we're excited to dive in today. And so Katherine is a big impact ghostwriter, but let me tell you a little bit more about Katherine. She comes all the way from Ontario, Canada. And so we are fellow Canadians today on the show for you, and which is unusual. That's not usually the case on this show. Katherine's a ghostwriter, a book coach, and a podcaster. She's got a great podcast called The Right Connection, and she helps subject matter experts make a bigger difference by getting their brilliant ideas into books and out across the globe to improve lives, influence others, and change the world. So Katherine started ghostwriting because she loves helping people use their professional experiences and insights to author a business book in their authentic voice, which is amazing. So Katherine, take us back to how you guys started as a ghostwriter. Were you inspired as a reader first, or how did you get into ghostwriting?
Well, I have always loved writing, and I honestly don't remember a time that I didn't write or didn't want to be a writer in my life. So various, different things, career paths, and ended up leaving a corporate job and looking to start my own business. So when I was thinking, what kind of business should I start? I went back to that childhood love of writing. And I've always felt called to write, and I've always felt called to help people with my writing. So kind of how could I put that together into a business? And so I started doing copywriting and, like social media, blog posts, press releases, basically just whatever needed to be done. And I would attend our local networking events, of course, pre-COVID. And, you're in a group of a bunch of people, but then people break off into these smaller conversations. And so I'd be in these little groups of 4 or 5 people, and someone would be telling a story, like how they started their business or some obstacle that they had overcome to keep their business going or to help a client or whatever it was. And I was just so struck by the power of these stories. And the person telling them was always like so humble, and they didn't realize that this would be something anyone would really care that much about. But since we asked, okay, they would tell us, kind of thing. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like if people knew this story, like your inbox would be full, your calendar would be full, you'd have all the clients you need. So I decided that that's my mission, is to tell those stories. And as I got into it further, I developed my business character analysis, which came from realizing that one of the key parts of those stories are the characteristics of the business owner. So with my business character analysis, I do an in-depth interview with people and clients as I onboard them. And then I give them a report with their one defining characteristic, that overarching personality trait that really is who they are and how they show up in their business, 3 supporting characteristics, and then the culminating result, which is, of course, the magic that happens when all of those characteristics come together to really benefit their clients.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thank you.
I bet that's something that people are on a search for. Like, is it surprising the results to the business owner as what those things are?
Usually I get things like, oh my gosh, I never thought of myself that way. Or, I've always wanted to be like that, but I didn't think that I was, stuff like that. So I think like if I can say this, it's a little bit of a confidence boost too to them, as well as giving us that foundational document to build their voice from for writing the book. So then as I progressed further and was using this analysis to write for people, I really realized that I wanted to do deeper dives, like writing a book, with fewer clients. So I really get that strong connection with them. I really get to know who they are and all about their business. And so I've let go of all of the shorter content, and I now focus on the business books.
Awesome. So, Katherine, tell us the $1 million question. Do we as entrepreneurs need a book?
Absolutely. A book is a great way to have people get to know who you are, your values, what you do, what it's like to work with you, and how you've helped real people just like that reader.
Yeah, so powerful. It's interesting. So I heard someone call it, actually, it was Kim Day, who we had on the show last year. She calls it your big business card, right? It's just your big business card.
It is. And, a lot of people give those books away for free because it's such a powerful way to bring in clients, not, and prospects, but also like to build your network. Because when people get to know you through a book, they can be more confident about referring you as well.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting when we're looking at guests to be podcast guests too, like someone says they have a book that sets them apart, it sets them like miles ahead of everyone else as a potential guest on shows too. It's interesting. I was just looking around in my room too here, my office. I have so many books, and all the books I have are people that I know, which is really awesome. That's when you're in the entrepreneurial world, where all the books on your shelf are written by people that you know or you've met. Or I had one of our clients, Hillary DeCesar, launched a book this week, and it's called The Relaunch. And I got it in the mail yesterday, and I was just like, this is so cool, getting books from people that that are the author, right? Super cool. Now, Katherine, you do something so different. And now in my head, I'm a podcaster. I hate writing. That's why I have a podcast, Katherine. I can't write. It's one of those things that's tricky. So now I know you come up with a really great solution for us podcasters who think we can't write. I know really we probably could, but it's not our favorite modality. So I'd rather turn on a microphone and start speaking than putting my pen to a paper and start writing. So you've developed a really cool program and really cool concept for us podcasters who already have content out there in the format of a show. So can you take us down that path a little bit here? Share with us a little bit more about what that's all about.
Sure. So first of all, you're not alone. There are a lot of people,
thank goodness,
podcasters who hate writing and are much more comfortable with the spoken word. And that's okay. That's totally fine, because you should be working in your zone of genius. But to get all the benefits of the book, we need to get that fabulous content that you have in your podcast into the written word. So there's a couple options. I mean, obviously there's the ghostwriting option of just having me do that for you, in which we would, create a plan together, talking about who your audience is and what your goals for the book are and all of that kind of stuff, and what kind of content you want to put in, like which episodes do you want to focus on. And then I would get transcripts of that. And you can even send me audio files and I'll run it through my transcription software, or you can send me the transcript directly, whichever. And then we can create the book from there. But I also have a program called Podcast to Book Made Simple, where I am coaching people through that process. And so I've created some really detailed templates and a process that I'm working on right now called 90 Days to 90 Pages. So
yes, that's awesome. So leave it up to us. It'll be like years before we get it written.
As someone said to me, you have to make it easy and you have to make it fun. Yeah, exactly. So I really, really have taken that to heart, Michelle, and I've been working over the last couple of weeks to really flesh out some templates that have a lot of the work done for you, a lot of the structure in place already. And I'm actually, this is like a little bit of a like secret that
Insider
I'm telling
secret stuff. Don't tell anybody else, guys. Just for your ears.
but I'm working on a theme of doing a quest, and so I've actually drawn out a map where you like have to go through the mountains and over a river and through the deep forest and stuff. So it's going to be like a whole journey that is going to be fun, and it is going to be easy.
Awesome. I love it. And that's why it's called Podcast the Book Made Easy. I love it. Made simple. Yes, simple. And oh gosh, this is such a good idea because I think of this idea and I'm like, this is awesome. But then I like stare at the computer and going, okay, well, what content that I put out there is going to go into the book and how to organize and all that. And so you've kind of laid out this roadmap and you're going to coach us along the way in doing that, which is amazing. So what about people who have mostly like interviews on their podcast? Will this still work for their show? I know a lot of our podcasters who are listening, they do a lot of interviews.
Yeah, so there's a couple different options. I mean, people have published books like my, top 10 interviews, and they just publish like the transcript of the interview with, some editing done to that. But if you want to focus more on your expertise and getting your insights and your kind of intellectual property across, there will be some comments that you make and some insights there. If you have other, like a keynote speech, a course that you do, a workshop that you've done that we have a recording for or some notes for or something, that's all content. And I can also interview you. So,
Cool.
For doing the ghostwriting, I often interview my clients and, they tell me you're pulling the content from me because like, I need someone to do that. It's in my head and I don't know how to get it out. I just need you to like sit down and hold space and pull it out of me because I don't even know what to tell you. So
that's awesome. And so, Katherine, for those maybe who are listening that might not be familiar with the term ghostwriting, what exactly is ghostwriting in the sense that you're using it?
So as a ghostwriter, that means that I am doing the physical writing, like typing, but I'm writing in your voice. So if we were doing Michelle's book, I would be saying, I am Michelle. The first person would be Michelle, not me. And so there's basically three different ways that can go with like the acknowledgements of it. It can be 100% completely confidential where you sign an agreement and nobody ever knows that you had a ghostwriter. It can be something that you acknowledge somewhere in the book, like under the acknowledgement section, like, thank you so much to Katherine for ghostwriting this book for me. Or, and I'm sure you've seen books like this, it would say by Michelle Abraham as told to Katherine Burrows right on the cover.
Yeah.
So there are books like that too. So it's all, about what fits your business.
You sound like the perfect magic secret weapon for podcasters who don't like to write. I think this is like the perfect solution, right?
And I love to tell stories, and I really love knowing why people do things. Like I love getting into the like what motivates you, what's your why, who are you helping and how, like all of that. It just like totally fascinates me, and I love writing about it and bringing that to the world because so much of that tends to stay in the background.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially if people are speaking or writing it themselves, they don't want to be, they think that their story is not important to share, or, they're a little bit more, humble, don't want to share that with the world, but you can get that out of them in a much better way. And I think that's interesting because I was just saying how like most podcasters would prefer to speak. Now you do both. Which one do you want? I know which one you're going to say, that you prefer probably the writing part of it, but you do both writing and podcasting. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So I did not know how much I would love podcasting, but I totally do. And when I first started, I was super tied to my script. Yeah. I wanted to write it all out ahead of time,
of course,
word for word in perfect sentences. The words were in a specific order for a specific reason, and I just wanted to go with And I actually have worked through that, had some great coaching on how to speak, more for a podcast as opposed to like standing up and reading a book, in a presentation, like an author would do a reading of their book.
Right.
Obviously, they're reading words that are written, but a podcast is very different from that.
Right.
Like they tend to be much more spontaneous. And so now with my guests, we jump on Zoom and for like 5 minutes beforehand, we talk about, a couple of points we're going to cover, and then we just like hit record. And that's been a huge process, letting go of my script.
That.
But it's also become like the perfect balance too, because writing can be such a solitary activity.
Mm-hmm.
That I get to have those great conversations and connections with people, and not always clients, but other people in my network too. So It really broadens how many people I connect with and get to know, and I get to hear more amazing stories.
That's cool. And so let's switch the topic to your podcast for a second. So on the Right Connection podcast that you host, who are you interviewing on there?
So I interview some people who are clients, some people in my network, people who have written books, people who want to write books.
So not necessarily authors who already have books, but people in your network that maybe could be writing books or wanting to write books as well.
Yeah, because we can talk about like what's holding them back, and why have they not yet written a book, and why haven't they called me yet?
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect sales sales conversation, Katherine, right there on your podcast.
Yeah. And so I also have solo episodes too, and I've done a couple different series, one about the power of storytelling, and one about bringing the 5 senses into your storytelling, which can totally work in your oral storytelling and your podcasting, as well as in the written word.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's so cool. You were mentioning a second ago about before the 5 senses one, the one that you said before you did a series on. What was that one again?
The power of storytelling.
Power of storytelling. Can you share us a little bit about like what is it about storytelling that is that we should be using? Why we should be using storytelling, especially like for our business, and talking about it like in relation to our business?
Sure. So first of all, 65% of all human conversation takes the form of storytelling. So it's something that we're naturally used to. We're naturally programmed to process information that way. And also information that we receive in story form, we remember it up to 22 times better than facts alone.
Wow.
So it not only makes it much more detailed and memorable, but we remember it longer as well. And so when you think about your brand and making your brand more memorable and staying top of mind longer, that's a huge benefit.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's amazing. And storytelling, I don't think it's something that comes naturally to everybody. Is there a way that if you feel like, I feel like I always like cut short the stories, like, okay, get to the main points in the story. Is there some techniques or ways that you can like expand those stories out?
Yeah. And I love adding in the 5 senses as descriptions. So, if you're thinking about what is your ideal client doing? So maybe they're a busy mom, let's say. And they've got like 3 kids under the age of 6 that they're running around. So you might sit there and picture that mom driving her minivan with the kids in the back. Okay, like what is she hearing? She's probably hearing a little bit of screaming, or maybe a little bit of whining, or when are we going to get there, Mom? There might be some music playing in the background. It's probably kids' songs. What is she smelling? Well, maybe they're like, eating some French fries because they just went to McDonald's. Sorry, this is like a little bit cliche, but anyway.
And she's definitely drinking her coffee because she's a lack of sleep and gone crazy.
So she's got some nice like hazelnut vanilla smell going on there with her coffee. And, like what's at the window? Like it could be some busy traffic. Maybe she's like driving down a country road because she's going to some like soccer field, like
Yeah, that just adds so many more layers to the story than just like that was in driving my kids from to the soccer field this morning. And yeah.
So, and it helps you to get into that ideal client's head more too
Mm.
when you think about what they're experiencing in those five different kind of, it's like a 5-dimensional way instead of like just 3-dimensional.
Yeah.
I know the fourth dimension is supposed to be time, but whatever. Um, so you're thinking about all of those things that they are seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, and tasting.
Cool.
And it makes it much more vivid, and that ideal client comes more alive in your mind. And then that helps you to speak more accurately and more directly to them in all of your business content.
That's cool. It really solidifies that like branding, marketing stuff we've heard over and over, like speak to that one person that's your avatar. And even in the podcasting too, speaking to that one person. So now writing that out, with the 5 senses, I think will help you to like visualize that person you're speaking to on your podcast too, which is awesome. Very cool. Well, Katherine, I love what you're up to. And I love the idea of taking your podcast into a book. I think that's so powerful, especially because we're probably as podcasters more likely to like the power of speaking over the power of writing. And so with your magic support and your journey that you take podcasters on to get that created, I think that's amazing. How do we find out more about working with you, Katherine, and more about your podcast to book made simple process?
So I have all the information on my website, which is katherineburrowscreative.com. And on the homepage, if you just scroll down a little bit, you'll find my ebook, The 5 Big Myths Keeping You from Writing Your Book. So I would totally suggest that you read that and have a good look and think about what might be holding you back. And
I probably said about 3 of them on this show, didn't I?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, they're the money myth, the content myth, the competition myth, the tech myth, and the time myth. So if you want to know more about all of those and how to overcome those things that are blocking you in those areas, then have a look at my ebook.
Isn't that funny? Almost the same 5 things that block people from writing a book is what also stops them from starting a podcast. Interesting.
Very, very true.
Yeah, very interesting. Very similar blocks that we have with both of those expression dominant activities, right? Yeah. Very cool. Well, Katherine, that's awesome. And guys, we will connect that to our show notes. Make sure you have all of Katherine's information so you can reach out to her. So, Katherine, what's the one thing you're looking most forward to coming up on your podcast?
Doing a bunch more interviews coming up in August. So I'm actually just finishing up a series on the 5 myths where I spend an episode diving into each of those 5 myths and talking about how they were actually holding me back too. So
amazing. The 5 things that hold you podcasters back is what held me back from podcasting too. So you guys are not alone out there. If you're feeling like you don't want to write a book, it's holding you back, or you don't want to start a podcast, gotta definitely go check out Katherine's podcast, The Right Connection. And I love that you dove into each of those 5. So that's awesome. Well, Katherine, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been awesome having you on. And guys, make sure you go and connect with Katherine. Check out her podcast. Go give her some love. We'll give her a review on her podcast. And Katherine, I know we will bring you back again sometime soon. Any last words for our podcasters out there who need to write a book?
You can do it. And you already have all of what you need to do it. You are a wonderful, authentic entrepreneur, and you already have lots of content.
Amazing. I think we're already steps ahead of everybody else. We have the content, right? Yes. Exactly. So cool. Well, thank you so much, Katherine. Have a great day. Talk to you, everyone. All right, Amplify You family. We'll see you again next week.